This episode of the SwitchCast is produced by Joe Leung, our honored Patreon member, and Hip Switch Cat. Hi everybody, I'm Casey.
And I'm JV.
And this is the SwitchCast, the podcast for the Nintendo Switch Ein Herjar. And
What?
Ein Herjar. This kind of ties back to what I picked for my System Switch last week, because an Ein Herjar is what a Valkyrie, when you die and you get to come back as a fighter in Valhalla, you are an Ein Herjar. That is a mythical, that's what your soul moves on to become if you were a valiant enough warrior in life to be reborn as a Ein Herjar.
Wow, that caught me off guard. So, the more you know.
And I bring it up because a couple of people took the bait, and they were curious about the sound clips I left at the end of last episode.
Oh yeah? What were they?
Well, some people correctly identified the voice actors as the people who did the voices of Brock and Jesse from Pokemon, from the original Pokemon anime. No, not James. It was Brock and Jesse were the voices I used in that clip.
Oh, I thought Brock and James had the same voice actor.
Oh, was he? I don't know. But it was definitely he was doing the voice of Brock.
He was doing the Brock.
Yes. And I did that because one of the things about Valkyrie Profile that I love so much was almost the entire cast of voices were the voice actors doing their Pokemon character voices.
Oh, how cool.
There's just a flat out Misty, the character who does Mistina, who is the voice of, the Jessie voice. She intentionally says things like, looks like trouble, things like that. They clearly had fun with the fact that it was everybody. Gary Oak, Ash. The main character herself is Officer Jenny / Bulbasaur's voice actress. Which
How
was
cool.
Yeah, okay. So I just thought that was cute to throw that in there.
It was like a kind of Pokemon OG voice actor reunion.
Yes, and this is the reason we were talking about this before. The main villain of the game was the voice of Maddie Blaustein, who was the voice of Meowth, and just one of the most amazing voice actresses of gaming. She, from, back then, she did a lot of different games, a lot of different cartoons, and she had such a great range. And so we've just kind of been reminiscing about some of our favorite voice actors and actresses since then.
She was quite a presence during the late 90s, early 2000s, especially in that whole Fox Kids Cartoon Network type situation with those early Saturday morning cartoons. Such good memories.
Yeah, no, it's great. Wow. So, anyway, that's where that all came from. So, congratulations to those who correctly identified the voices in there. And, but we had another little surprise actually coming up. GV, you finally. We have the final piece of the puzzle is coming together for our patrons.
Absolutely, yes. So getting swag that's very specific to your brand, which is the SwitchCast, is very time-consuming, and it takes a while. So I'm glad that's finally closing out. It's been so long. But
yes.
Yes, now that we have a lot of active Patreon members, you will be getting stuff soon.
I will definitely post in the Lens feed tonight the flash drives. He finally ordered the flash drives, and it's a mock-up, but you'll get an idea of what the gift is going to look like for those of you who backed us at the level that you're going to get the SwitchCast flash drives with a few extras loaded in on there for you. And if you're one of those people who was even getting just a button or a t-shirt or whatever, and you didn't get them yet, just letting you know, it's not that we forgot to send it to you or that
it's all coming in one wave.
Right. He just wanted to get everything together, and he's going to be sending them out possibly by the end of the month, early next month, when he gets everything together. And we're going to do a few little extra recordings for those who get the flash drives as well.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to get these all in your hands. So it's going to be good.
Okay. We do have, as always, a really big show for you guys this week. We have a bunch of games, including a pretty cool party game, and something that I did not think that it kind of was a different take. It was by the Zen Studios people, the Disco Dodgeball, which a lot of people in the chat have been talking about.
Yeah, honestly, it's I'm really glad that the Zen Studios team are willing to branch out beyond pinball, and they were willing to let us know about this game, and I want to hear what you think about it.
Yes, and I'll be reviewing Yonder, the Cloud Catcher Chronicles, and you had a couple other games you're going to, or you've been playing this week?
I'm talking about Don't Die, Mr. Robot DX and Timberman Versus.
I like how you got the suffixes reversed there on the notes.
Yeah.
We also have a lot of news, including something interesting that spurred our conversation for this week, the Community Pulse. We're going to be talking about and hearing what you guys have to talk about the growing trend, or I'd say experimental trend, of these streaming games, cloud games that are being brought into the Switch. I don't know if it's going to be a larger trend, but it's something that seems to be happening, and we want to ask what you guys feel and if this is possibly a good direction or something that you hope the Switch steers completely clear from. So we'll talk about all that today, plus, of course, all the new releases and down the pipe. So why don't we go right into the game time and start talking about some games?
All right, let's do it.
Until dawn. It's the dark end of night, but the compass brings me light, encouraging and warm.
All right, JV, it's time to
boogie.
It's time to boogie. That's a good one. I was trying to think of a good disco.
I got to boogie.
So we both got to play Disco Dodgeball, which is kind of I kind of want to call it a bit of a party game.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a party game. I think based on just how it feels and how it's intended to be played, it's definitely a party game. And disco encompasses party. So
now, this game does have online play, but neither of us did actually get to do that. I did get to play some multiplayer locally, though, with a few people.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I got to do that. Like, it was an odd number of people, but I still got a taste of that there. But yeah, Disco Dodgeball definitely lives up to the two ends of the name. This is a cyber kind of robot on robot dodgeball game with arenas, different sizes, power-ups, pretty fast matches, and it's a simple but pretty, colorful and fun art style to it.
Yeah, I can definitely see. I like the contrasting colors. It reminds me of a Tron-esque aesthetic.
Yeah.
And you know how much I love that style.
Yeah. Yeah, it has that geometric kind of arenas to it, and you're all these robots on one wheel, kind of like Rosie the maid from Jetsons or something like that. And you're kind of cartoony, like, looking guys with, like, big smiley faces. And the basic premise is you enter these arenas with a team of up to 4 players against another, team, or at least in the basic mode of it. And there are balls all, scattered around the stage. You grab them, you jump, you throw, you can pick up power-ups that, maybe make your balls flaming or bigger or homing, stuff like that. And if you hit someone, they lose a life. And if you catch the ball, you could also, it's really hard to do, but you can hit the R button as the ball's just hitting you, and you can catch it, and that will knock out the person who threw it. But that is actually a very tricky technique here.
Yeah, but that's actually pretty reminiscent to a lot of standard dodgeball rules, so... Yeah,
it's the basic dodgeball rules. Respawning is really fast, so, like, pretty much as soon as you die, you're, like, back, like, 2 seconds later. And it's not that easy to aim, but I think that's by design. It's not a game where you're supposed to, like, you don't have like rapid fire weapons in this, like, in Splatoon. You can charge up your shots to make it go a little further, but everything's moving pretty fast. So it's not like it's super easy unless the opponent's really close to lock on and hit somebody.
Yeah. And honestly, it's the control scheme is actually quite simple, and I'm pretty sure that's by design.
Yeah, so yeah, you have the left joystick, you move. It has that weird thing though where once you start moving, you don't stop unless you hit I think the B button, and then like that's the only way to stop moving.
Yeah, which is a little weird, but it might just be intentional design choices.
Well, yeah, I mean they definitely. I mean that's obvious. It is an intentional. I'm
right.
Yeah,
but I'm not
curious,
sure how that would contribute to the gameplay, but
I guess because I guess you don't really ever want to be standing still in a game like this where like there's just things coming at you all the time, and I think that's like the only time you're really vulnerable is when you stop moving. But I mean, maybe, yeah. I wasn't quite sure why that was a choice there, but it never really got in the way. As I was playing it, I never really noticed it because I was always holding the direction I wanted to go anyway.
Right.
You can hold down in the R button or the ZR button, and you can charge up a jump. And when you let go, you can bound. And the L button, you can do a dash if you have like a charge up meter. And when it's at 100%, you can dash like fast for a short distance. But that's a good way to like either get out of trouble or beat someone to a dodgeball you're trying to grab.
Right.
Oh, right. And the regular R button, that's how you throw. If you just tap it, you can throw fast, or you can hold it to charge up the shot, and it'll go a little further and a little faster. And it's nice. Everything's kind of color coded, so when it's a ball that your team has thrown, the ball turns your color, either blue or red, or it'll turn, the enemy's color if they're throwing it. I think it stays the color longer depending on how much you charge it, and that's also how long it's like deadly. So
right.
There's like a certain safe point after it's gone a certain distance that you can just grab it and not worry about it. So how hard did you find it to like actually get like decent at the controls of this game?
So I didn't play it for too long, but when I did, it did take some getting used to because I didn't expect the continuous forward motion of the character. When I played the game, I had a distinct feeling that it was trying to be like Rocket League in a sense that it's taking a kind of known sport and making a weird twist to it. And from there, it was easy for me to grasp what I was trying to do, but in the way they presented the controls, I was kind of tripped up a bit.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. It did take me a while to get how to do things, especially like complicated movements. Like if I wanted to jump and then like spike the ball while I was in midair at somebody, like that's a kind of a feat of dexterity that was not easy to do off the bat.
But the thing is, when I was playing the game, I wasn't sure if they intentionally made it a little bit tricky. Because, when you first hop into a game of Rocket League, the concept of the game is simple. You know what you're doing. But really, controlling your car is kind of difficult. Like, getting the ball to go where you want it to go is really part of the challenge. And I wasn't sure if they were trying to do something similar here, or if it's just a design flaw with the game itself.
So I think one of the biggest things that you have to definitely get used to is how to aim.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Similar to Splatoon, I felt early on that this is a game that benefits from motion controls, and there is an option to turn those on. It's not by default. By default, you have to aim with the right joystick.
See, I didn't. I stuck with the joystick the whole time.
Yeah. Once I turned on motion aiming controls, I found myself a lot more involved with, taking good shots. And I still learned you don't have a lot of time to aim in this game, because if you ever focus on something too long and you're not like dodging, you will get hit by something somewhere. It is just a crazy game like that.
That's the thing. When you're actually shooting or throwing your ball, you're actually in a pretty vulnerable position while you're doing that. So you have to minimize as much time aiming as possible just to make sure that you're not a sitting duck.
But the overall feel of these like arena battles is crazy. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. Not only are there like balls flying everywhere and good guys, bad guys all over, a lot of the stages have multi-levels to them, so you can get on top of like platforms, or there'll be like jet streams to jump across with. People are just flying around left and right. I could really imagine some decent teamwork options, because you can actually do things like alley-oops. Like you can throw the ball at a partner, and they can grab it, and then they can like, finish somebody off with it, or like, do a spike if you toss it to them in the air. There's even a mode that scores you based on the type of shots. Like just killing an enemy doesn't really score you much, but if you can do like a crazy double kill or ricochet shot or, air shots like that, they score you higher based on doing trick shots like that.
I'm sure if people get really competitive about this game, those are the type of moves that you want to master.
Yeah. No, I can see it actually. I did get the feeling that this is it's a simple enough to pick up game, but it does have a lot of technique to it, kind of like a Rocket League. I think that's a fair analysis. Like, it's a simple enough game to pick up and just know the rules and how to play. And you could just go all vigilante and not worry about your allies. But I could see it being a kind of game where, as you get better at it, there is a payoff, and it's still fun and casual, but there's still there's a skill cap to reach in it as you go.
Right.
I also played, there was the single player modes, there's a few different modes. There's like a endless arcade mode where you try to see how many waves of enemies you can get through. As you go, when you earn money, you can unlock special powers for yourself. And, just like, it's like an endless mode. See how many, how many different challenges and even boss enemies you can take on. And as I said, there's a few different options for the multiplayer, like the arena modes. You can make it elimination or deathmatch, where players are just out after a certain number of times being knocked out, or just a score mode where it's just, how many times can you knock them out. And there's also a lot of customization options. You can take all your items that you get from winning, and you can unlock hats, decals, color options, all sorts of stuff like that. So I think as people play it, you're going to start seeing a lot of weird customized robots on the field there too.
Yeah, and overall, I think the aesthetic is pretty cool. I'm wondering, I didn't really see any customizations since I didn't play online multiplayer. I didn't really see any customizations that looked super amazing.
They're pretty simple. I saw I got my guy a top hat, and I can customize his face and, a few little things like that. Nothing too crazy. Like, you can't change the general model of your robot. Like, he's always going to be the same square
roller dude.
Yeah.
And it has to be that way. It really does, because you want it to be a consistent experience for everyone.
As long as the same hitbox. I think that's the main thing. Is you got to.
Right.
The hitbox is extremely important in this game. So, I do like the aesthetic though of the stages. It feels like a laser tag arena.
Oh, that is actually a really good way to put it. This definitely feels like a video game laser tag.
Yeah, and just like so many lights and colors changing around, and the balls are all glittery like a disco ball. It has a good aesthetic. It has a good beat. It's not like, crazy music. It's just kind of a cool, like, techno beats that go by that are pretty cool. And it's just got a good vibe. I think it's a fun game. I think it's only like $15?
I believe it's $12. $12. So for $12, it's honestly not a bad experience, I think. And
especially if you can find some people to play with, and the online community seems to be doing all right off the bat. I mean, Zen Studios does do some pretty good online support for their games, so
it definitely seems like they were trying to push this to be the next sports. It's part of the marketing. It's your next favorite sports type thing, and I thought that was a pretty cheeky nod to stuff like Rocket League.
I can say, if anyone is even vaguely interested in this, definitely swing by the Discord chat for the SwitchCast, link in the show notes, and see who wants to play, because again, this is definitely one of those games that if you play it just one player, you're really not getting the point of the game. That's just, the one player is just kind of a thing to keep you occupied when you're playing on a train or somewhere you can't get online. Playing it with people, especially local, I think would be really great, but the online sounds to be really where it's at, and it will provide a lot of fun, and it's a simple concept executed with a really good panache.
I like the overall aesthetic. I like the pace of the game. It's something that it's fun, and we'll see how it progresses as an esport in the future, if it even gets that big.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, that's all up to the players really at this point. Right?
Exactly.
All right, so that was a fun little thing. Now, calming things down a bit, the next game I played this week, or for a couple of weeks now, is Yonder, the Cloud Catcher Chronicles.
Yonder!
Yes, Yonder is definitely a way more chill game than Disco Dodgeball. This is a game more about exploration than pretty much any other game I can even think of, honestly.
Really? It definitely seems serene and simple. Kind of reminds me of Dragon Quest to a degree.
I would see now when you look at it, it does have kind of a similar aesthetic to it. And the first way I tried to explain it when I was playing it, it feels like a mix of Breath of the Wild and I want to say like Stardew Valley.
Oh.
There's a lot of open worldness. The general premise is you're some sort of explorer who was on a mission to discover this island. Your ship gets wrecked and now you're there and there's really no word about the crew that you left behind. I don't think anyone cares about them. All it is you're here and you've met the people and there's this stuff called the murk, which is kind of like this like purpley mist that plagues parts of it. And you're really just trying to go out and explore and find these different sprites to chase away the murk. And really beyond that, it's open-ended, kind of like a Stardew Valley where there's a lot of things you can do, but nothing that you really have to do.
Okay.
Some things I definitely want to note that it is not like Breath of the Wild is that there is no combat. There are no
None
monsters
whatsoever.
in this game.
Okay.
Nothing whatsoever. There's nothing to fight. So when you're exploring the world, you don't have to worry about a bokoblin coming out and, beating you over the head with a bone club or something like that. You are free and safe to explore pretty much anywhere. You never have to worry about, overpowered monsters ganging up on you and stopping you on the way.
Gotcha.
It is similar in that it is a beautiful landscape, this island. Not nearly as big again as Breath of the Wild, but it is a fairly good size.
I'm looking at the graphics and honestly, they look actually quite spectacular for what it is.
I'll say the landscapes, the world itself, the environment, the natural stuff, and even some of the architecture is really well done and it's very pleasing. And has a little bit of a soft kind of cartoony look to it.
And the art style really plays up to that softness. I don't think I see any hard edges on any of the 3D assets in the game, really.
The only thing I kind of don't like is the character models. I don't feel the people you meet look particularly unique. Like a lot of them seem like they have the exact same kind of face and expression with like, all right, we're going to slap a beard on this exact same character and now it's like a different person. Like
that's interesting that you say that because just looking purely on gameplay videos and screenshots, it doesn't even seem like there are any other characters. It kind of looks lonely. It
is rarely lonely in that, like, especially when I go to a village, and there's a lot of villages to find across the village, across the island. But when I go there, I feel like I get the impression like they're almost abandoned. There's not a lot of people. There's not that bustlingness that, like, even when you come across like a small town or like just an outpost, let's say Breath of the Wild, and not that that's really a fair comparison, this game, to Breath of the Wild, but just this one aspect where you go to a small little outpost and there's like a person here who's cooking fish on a fire. There's a person there who's counting his money for the day. There's this person who's taking a nap or this person who's herding some cattle. Just the placement of a few people makes this little hut feel like a bustling hub in this world. I go in this game, I go to an entire village and I feel like it's empty and it's, I can count like maybe 5 people in the entire village that you can talk to, and it just doesn't feel like there's anything going on here. It just kind of feels like they built a town and threw in a couple of key characters. So
now I do have to ask, do you feel like that's by design? Do they want you to feel like it's abandoned and there's a bit of scarcity or sparsity in the world?
I don't think so, because the village itself has a lot of houses in it. It looks like it's supposed to be a important place, or at least like a central. Well, I mean, some villages are a little more, populated than others, but often I feel like there's just not enough to make it feel like it's a lively for this island.
Gotcha.
Or, if they were intending to make it feel lonely, then the architecture didn't match the populace or something like that.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, that's not like a major thing, but it is something that just kind of like nagged at me while I was playing it.
Right.
So some of the things you can do in the game include you can eventually start to, do fishing. You can gather resources. You can either like mow down tall grass or collect herbs. You can chop down trees, mine for gemstones. You can get involved in a lot of different crafts. Every town that you village has a guild in it, and those guilds will teach you the basics of like, here's how to be a carpenter, here's how to be a seamstress, that kind of stuff. And they'll unlock some recipes, and then when you get the right materials, you can go and make stuff. Some of it's useful, some's purely aesthetic, like you can start crafting your own clothing and customize your character with different outfits or hats. You can start building little facilities for your farm, because you're going to get a couple of different farms across the village, actually. And you can maybe build a stable or decorations for there. So that comes into play. There's a lot of trading. And when I say trading, it's literally a barter system in this game. There is no money per se. When you go to a town and let's say you want to buy some like wood planks, they have a value on them, but you don't trade money. You have to trade items from your inventory that equal the value of the stuff that you want from the merchant. So you might say, I want some wood planks, I want some of this like water and some fish. They'll say, all right, that's 75. Now you have to take items from your inventory and give him that much value. And the thing is, different things are worth more in different villages. So like if you're in the seamstress village, they don't really have a high price on like yarn and stuff, because that's where they make it. They don't, that's cheap there. But if you bring in some, fish or maybe some lumber from another part of the island that's rare there, you can sell it for a higher price.
Okay, so that feels like it's kind of like a resource management aspect to the game.
There's a little bit of that. I mean, some people think it's a little cumbersome. A lot of people I've heard like would prefer it if it was just a money system, sell, buy low, sell high. But I actually kind of dig it. I like getting a good deal in towns where I thought, they needed a certain thing and I could bring them. I liked feeling like an actual trader. And I don't know. It worked for me.
Well, yeah, that's it. I'm guessing that's just an aspect of gameplay that could really only appeal to a certain type of people.
I think a lot of this game will only appeal to certain types of people, and I am kind of in the wheelhouse of the people who would like this game. But I think that there's going to be a lot of people who might not find this particularly entertaining unless you're really, really looking for that relaxed exploration feel. And the thing is, all the other stuff that you can do is not like incredibly fleshed out. Like I mentioned, you have the farm, and the farm is kind of cool, and you can start a few across the island, and you can get some animals you can recruit to come in and, make some milk here and there or whatever, a little garden. But it's not that complicated. It's not even that much to do on them. It's not a actual Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley level of, I got to prepare for the winter. I got to, sow these seeds now so that in a couple of months, it's really just, I'm going to throw some seeds. I'll come back whenever I come back and I'll collect them. And maybe you pick up some poop once in a while because they leave poop there, and you can, customize. It's not that in depth. Like I said, even the crafts, they're not that in depth. But so the real emphasis is on exploration, and a lot of what you have to do is rewarded by that. Particularly are the sprites. The sprites, these little, it's kind of like finding those. What are those things again from Breath of the Wild that you find everywhere?
Koroks.
Yeah, it's like the Koroks, pretty much. They're just hiding all over the world in different places, or sometimes you have to solve a little puzzle somewhere, and they'll pop up. And as you find them, you need to have like a certain number of these sprites discovered before you can chase the murky mist out of certain areas of the map, and that'll unlock more places for you to explore. And like I said, you can pretty much go almost anywhere on the map. The downside is there's no real fast travel in the game.
Oh, okay.
So you really do have to walk across most of the map. Eventually, you can craft an item that'll let you warp to any of your farms, but until you get lots of farms, and there's not, it's still not that fast of a travel. So you're going to have a lot of time just to kind of retrace your steps, maybe take a different path and explore a different area you didn't really explore the last time you went over there.
Yeah, so based on everything you've described so far, I'm feeling like there's not really a sense of urgency to anything.
Nothing's urgent. It's very laid back. In fact, you probably do want to take your time, because the game does have this timer system in that days, weeks, and seasons go by as you play it. And it really is nice to see the seasons change, because there are even holidays in the game. Like there's a Halloween event at one point where you can go on a little mission, do some trick-or-treating, unlock a costume for your character. In the winter, certain paths or some water freezes over, and it might unlock a path that you can't get to other times of the year. And the graphics do portray the seasons really well. It's kind of beautiful to see the snowfall in certain areas, and it's a nice touch again to the environments, and there's lots of quests to dig up too. But all the quests are pretty much fetch quests, like go get me this item or find my lost dog or whatever like that. So that kind of gets repetitive. They do at least make finding your quests easy. You have this compass, and it will let you basically pick whatever quest you want to do, and it will just point a laser beam towards whatever goal or objective you have to do next for that quest, which is nice for finding your way around. It's not a complicated map, so it's not hard to get around, but it would be nice if you can get a horse or something to go a little faster.
So you don't even get any specific system that lets you move faster? No,
just the warp items that'll take you back to a farm.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, that's not super convenient like that there. Only thing I'll say on the graphics that's a downside is that the frame rate does get choppy sometimes, especially when it's saving your data. It's just a little, it's a little thing, but again, since you're not in combat, it's not going to like cause you big problems. You're not going to die because of it. I just feel like this is the kind of game I feel like I kind of want that ability to climb anything or poke around anywhere, but you're
right.
Your capabilities, your maneuverability isn't that great. You could jump a little bit, but that's about it. And I just kind of feel like I want to climb stuff and I want to like reach more places, but I'm not a particularly mobile character.
Yeah. With this type of game, I feel like I would really want to explore and find the nooks and crannies of the world. And hearing that it's not really a game that supports that, it doesn't sound as appealing to the type of gamer that I am.
I say, even though you could probably beat the main story of this game in like a week, it's the kind of game you're going to play if you're really looking to just kind of go where the wind takes you. You'll enjoy finding what you find. And even though none of the systems are particularly deep, you can do a lot with them if you're just going to like say, you know what, I'm going to try to do this quest of make 10,000 value of clothing, and I want to become a master carpenter or something like that, or I want to catch fish on every corner of the island if I want to.
So you did ultimately find this to be a satisfying experience?
It's an enjoyable game. I just think that I can only recommend it to people who are really looking for specifically a game that is super low pressure and is just about this exploration, because you're not going to get that same level of rewarding accomplishment in a game like, let's say, a Harvest Moon or Stardew, where it's like, look at my farm. It's become so big. I have all this stuff now, and I see things growing all the time. You don't get that kind of reward. The only reward is just completing quests and finding the sprites and finding little nooks and crannies. Like, even when I found like a cool ruin, I found like a cool tower, it's not like there was anything there for me to get. There wasn't like a treasure chest for my character to get like a cool new like armor or something. It's just, you have to appreciate that you found that tower, and that tower itself is the reward. So just keep that in mind. I think it's a fun game and I enjoy it, but I just want to very much stress it's the kind of game that you have to be looking for that experience to enjoy.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I'm always just looking and wondering why I would choose to play this over something like Stardew Valley, which has a lot more going for it, but with a different graphic style.
I think it's just like, that's like you're playing that for the sim and the story. I guess that's the other thing. I guess it doesn't really have that much of a story going for it here either. And I feel like it could have been driven a little bit more with something like that, or more types of challenges to find. But again, it is what it is.
So would you recommend it for the price, you think?
Price, what is it, about $40? I kind of didn't really feel like this was like a $40 game personally.
$30.
I think $30 is what the sweet spot for me, yeah. It's
so?
funny, that's kind of become our rating system here, I feel like.
Yeah, if the price is worth it.
I think that's it, because you usually ask me at the end of a review if it's right for that price, and then the natural follow-up is what price I think would be fair, I would enjoy it for. So that's kind of become our rating system.
But honestly, I think it's actually a fair way to assess things, because having a single scale for every game doesn't take into the consideration how much money you put into it. Because if you're purchasing like a $5-10 game, it might be a 7 out of 10 game, but it would be totally worth it for that price.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way. That's definitely a way to look at it and consider it. But again, this is a game that's very honed on a very specific kind of experience. And if you're the kind of person who played Breath of the Wild and just wanted to reach different areas and avoided fights and just wanted to see every corner of the map before going through that pesky storyline and in dungeon crawling, you might be interested in Yonder.
Yeah, okay. That sounds like a good conclusion.
All right, so what were these two little games that you were playing? And I do call them, because they sounded like these were pretty fast, compact little titles here.
Yes, so for my first review, I'm going to talk about Don't Die, Mr. Robot DX. And it's interesting that it is a DX title, because there's not really that much to this game. So, Don't Die, Mr. Robot is essentially a twin-stick shooter game without the shooting. You're a little clip art-like character within a grid, and the object of the game is for you to survive as long as possible. Okay. Now, you don't actually do anything. You don't shoot anything. All you do is move through this 2D plane, while various enemies come at you from different angles with different movement patterns. And if you collide with those enemies, you lose and die immediately.
Oh, okay. It's a one-shot kill game.
Yeah, so the object of the game is to avoid those enemies for as long as possible. And there is a way for you to retaliate, however, in the form of fruit. So whenever there's in random intervals within the stage, you pick up a piece of fruit, and that kind of releases a shockwave ring. That if that shockwave hits any of the enemies that you're trying to dodge, it'll actually destroy them, and they'll drop coins for you to pick up for points.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so that's the game.
That's pretty much it. There's no progressing levels or anything like that.
There is some level of progression. So you have an arcade mode, which is just a continuous score until you die. And from there, you want to gain multipliers by getting more exploding fruit. You want to get as high a score as possible, and that's about it. There is I believe it's called a remix mode that is continuous stages with varying objectives based on each stage. And each remix consists of 5 levels that you go through that shares a similar level structure to something like Super Mario. So you have a 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 1-4, 1-5. And if you do well in a certain number of those levels, you move on to the next remix, which is another set of 5 levels that you progress with. The gameplay between those stages are still kind of similar. Mm-hmm. You're still just a character. You're still eating exploding fruit, and you're still trying to rack as many points as possible. But that stage structure kind of gives you a little bit of a feel of progression, though it didn't seem like it was super in-depth on that way.
What did you feel about this art styles of the game? Did it...
Yes, I mentioned clip art earlier. Everything looks like clip art, KC.
And how do you just... I mean, I'm looking at some images of it. For me, honestly, I'll just say it makes it kind of look like cheap.
Yes, it definitely looks cheap. And whenever
like a Flash game you'd play on Newgrounds or something.
Whenever I'm saying clip art, I'm referring to those old Microsoft Word built-in graphics that you put into a Word document that look really silly. The graphics don't look appealing to me whatsoever.
All right.
You can customize your robot dude's appearance, but even so, it has such a silly, cheap art style. I could probably mock something like this up in a couple minutes, to be honest.
Okay. I just kind of wanted to get that out of you, I think, because like that's what I thought of. It was that's why I did not honestly pick up this game myself. It just kind of looked like a Flash game to me. Yeah.
And for me, I felt like I was obligated to review this game because the word robot was in the title. And I was like, you know what? I'll give this a chance. You had me at robot. And ultimately, the game isn't terrible. Mm-hmm. The gameplay of dodging, avoiding the enemy creatures, grabbing the exploding fruit, and collecting as many points as you get, it is a satisfying gameplay loop. Okay. And honestly, when there's a lot of fruit on the screen and you hit one and the explosion hits other things, it does cause a pretty satisfying chain reaction. Mm-hmm. And you can get multipliers by having those combo with each other. Okay. The problem is that the gameplay loop is practically all there is. Mm-hmm. And while it is fun, and there is a pretty decent variety of enemies, if you don't like that loop, it's not going to be something that you're into.
Okay. I was going to say, like, how long do you think this game would keep most people's attention for?
I know some people find this gameplay addictive, and if you do, then I believe this is actually kind of worth its price.
Okay. What is its price?
The price is normally $9, but right now it's on sale for $6.02 for some reason. Okay. So for $5 to $6, it's not bad for what it is. I feel like you could probably spend your money better elsewhere, but if you do like the fundamental gameplay of dodging and comboing, and you don't mind the kind of cheap looking art style, it's definitely a pick up and play game that could be satisfying to folks.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I wouldn't personally have picked this up if it wasn't for the SwitchCast. But you know, it's you take it or leave it.
Okay, so why don't you tell us then about the other one you played, Timberman versus?
Yes, so Timberman versus it is kind of on a similar vein as this. So Timberman, did you know those mini games, Casey, where you're a character at the very bottom of a big tree and you're chopping up the tree, and that's progressing the tree down, and you have to avoid the branches while you're doing each chop?
I did play one of those. I think those hit like mobile phones a while back, and
yes,
it was one of those like a Flappy Bird kind of thing that got really popular for a while.
That's this game. Okay. Review over. We're done. No, but for real, Timberman versus it's a pixel graphic style game where you are chopping trees. With every single time you press a button, you're chopping a tree, and with the branches coming down on you, you have to switch to the other side, chop more, and you have to avoid the branches while continually chopping and moving left to right. This is a mini game that's been around for so long and is honestly usually accompanied by other games. Like even Kirby Star Allies has this exact mini game built into the game itself.
Do they add anything or variations to make this worth being a standalone game on the Switch here?
So this game has 3 modes. Quote unquote modes. Okay. There's the classic mode, which is an endless chopping fest. So you just keep going until you die and you get a score based on how many chops you make.
Now wait, what is pressuring you to not just take your time and dodge the branches as they come down?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is actually a bar at the very top. That continuously goes down. And once you actually chop a piece of the tree, it prevents the bar from going down. So if you go too slowly, the bar goes down and depletes faster than you're hitting. So if you keep at a good pace, then you're essentially keeping that bar at bay, preventing it from dropping down. With that in mind, let's talk about hero mode. Woo, hero mode, yay! So the object of hero mode is that you're at the very bottom, and at the top of the tree are these birds inside of a nest. And because the tree's burning, you want to chop down the tree and get to those birds and rescue them.
Okay, that's an interesting twist.
So you can be the hero. What makes this mode particularly different is that you actually have a set number of chops that you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially you have to survive like 234 chops before you get to the top of the tree. So you just keep chopping at it until you reach the top. That is hero mode.
Oh, so it's just more of a finish line to it.
Yeah, there's an actual finish line. Now, there are 3 different difficulties, which literally only dictate how many chops you do. So, easy mode is about 200 something, almost 300. And then the hardest mode means you have to go through 700, 800 chops in one session. And, with that in mind, it's just, it's a very repetitive experience because you're literally doing the same motion the whole time. So, with all of that, those are the 2 quote-unquote single-player modes. There is a progression system, kind of. Mm-hmm. So, whenever you do a chop, that gives you XP at the end of the stage. And the experience lets you level up to different levels, and as you reach each level, you unlock a new character. The characters are the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. There's no change, there's no stats, they
just look different.
It's just an aesthetic difference. Mm-hmm. Some of the characters are pretty cool. There's like an Edward Scissorhands one. There's a robot one, which I gravitated towards. There's obviously the lumberjack, that type of stuff. But there's faux progression in the form of these cosmetic changes. Now, there is a versus mode, which is racing, where you can play with 4 other people, or with 3 other people.
Thank you.
And, yeah. You got it. Whoever can reach a certain number of chops wins.
Okay.
And so these are the 3 modes in this Timberman versus game. And that's it.
So I guess that's the way the versus comes in, is this race mode and playing other people. Is it only local, or do you know if that can actually play people
it's
online?
Absolutely only local.
Okay, I figured it.
There's no online to this. The gameplay is so simple, and this gameplay has been around for so long, and there's been mobile games for it. It's kind of one of those kiddie arcade games that give you tickets. It's very straightforward. The aesthetics are clean, and the price is only $2.
Oh, all right.
So, if for whatever reason you like the cathartic feeling of chopping and you want the buttons of a Switch, this game is something you could consider. But there really isn't much to it, and after a while, I kind of found it a bit tedious.
Yeah, but for $2, that's the thing.
Yeah.
For $2, it's the kind of game you buy because once every 3 months you feel like turning it on because you just want something mindless to play for a little while.
Right, exactly. I would give this game maybe a 5 or 6 out of 10, and that seems bad for a full $60 game. But the fact that this is $2 is, it's an easy sell.
That's cool. No, that's cool. Again, this is definitely going along with that trend, as we keep mentioning, the mobile game crossover with the Switch, that it seems to fit, especially when they actually bring these kind of games over at those comparable prices to their mobile versions. I think people don't mind spending $2 for just some impulse buy that they might play for an hour or 2 today, and maybe they don't touch it again for a year, but who cares? It was $2.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's Timberman versus.
All right, so that is our game time. So why don't we take a breather and move over to the news rundown?
Let's do it.
All right, news rundown, and here are your headlines. kick us off. This is actually a pretty big one, JB.
Oh yeah,
really cool.
I definitely agree. So it looks like in Japan they are releasing a new SKU for the Nintendo Switch. This time with customizable Joy-Cons and without the dock.
Yeah, this is actually one of those things that early on, a lot of people speculated, and I think some people wished existed back when the Switch first came out. The ability to just buy the tablet and controllers.
Version,
yeah, without that. It doesn't come with even like it doesn't have the plug or grip controller. It just has... yeah, literally just the tablet and the controllers at the side. So you can just have another Switch and just use all your other peripherals as needed.
Well, it's interesting because this might be kind of a sign of how popular the pure handheld experience is in Japan.
That is true. I mean,
yeah.
You still have to then buy the charger to charge it separately. But
right.
So even though this is intended to be everyone's second, yeah, you're right. They could definitely use this as I just want it for the mobile feature. I don't need the dock to hook it up to a TV.
Yeah, and you know what? That's totally fine. We were definitely considering that during the early phases of the Switch. We were wondering what mode would be more popular, handheld or tabletop. Mm-hmm. And handheld gaming is just so prevalent within Japan. It makes sense that this second Switch option is made available there as soon as possible.
Also very cool, they let you pick the color for each individual Joy-Con and the Joy-Con strap, so you can customize that as you make the order, which is neat.
I really wish that was here in America. The sheer number of color options was here.
Yeah. You have 7 different colors from which to pick for each of those little segments there. So that's pretty cool. I think at the end of the day, you save the equivalent of $50 off the price of the Switch when you buy it this way. And I think the Switch dock costs about $50 when you try to buy it from Nintendo anyway. So it's literally just giving you that. So if you change your mind down the line and bought the dock separately, you'd still be in the same boat. So it's just you're not forced to buy it if you don't need it.
Right. And if you already have a USB-C charger, that's even more of a savings for you.
That's true. But again, remember, we as we've learned, do not use non-Nintendo chargers for this thing because we don't know what they could do.
Yes. We will not be responsible for any damage to your Switch if you use a third-party charger.
Also, in the business world of the Switch, I thought this was cool that the Nintendo president, Tatsumi Kimishima, was named as one of the top CEOs in the world by Forbes magazine. And they do this little list annually, and I just thought it was pretty neat. Especially because he was just kind of put on as this interim president of kind of a transitional phase ever since Satoru Iwata passed away. But he's been in charge at this very critical moment, and he's been credited with being very communicative and kind of just making things very easy for the new hands to take over. In a month, actually, that's when he will be stepping down for the new president.
Good job.
Yeah, just kind of fun, cool things there. Okay, and this is fun too.
Yeah, so it looks like a very prominent Nintendo Switch hacker has been fully banned from Nintendo's online services.
This is the first time I actually heard about bans being doled out for the Switch online service. And apparently it's been happening to a few people, but this was the most public of them because he was someone who was posting videos and tweets about his hacking endeavors. And the interesting twist was this was not even on the Switch that he used for hacking. It was just the same account he had logged in, I think. But they just kind of tracked, all right, this is the account he used on that Switch he hacked, and this is we're just going to ban him from the online. Like, he can't do the eShop, he can't play games online, and he's even emailed them trying to get it revoked, but they're like, please look at your terms end users licensing agreement, sorry.
Yeah. To be honest, I don't really have that much sympathy for people who get banned due to hacking. It's one of those situations where you kind of have to understand this is a risk with the territory.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Yeah, that's the risk you take, especially when you are publicizing it and trying to kind of spread word of how to do these sort of things. That makes you a prime target.
Yeah, if you're publicizing your hacks, you are proliferating the activity, and that isn't something Nintendo really wants. So, boom, hacked.
Okay, so what do you think of the new list of rumored characters coming to Super Smash Brothers?
I am skeptical. So it looks like Ridley, Ice Climbers, and Simon Belmont have been rumored to be part of the next Smash Bros. Now, there are no definite answers. There's no hard leaks to this.
Well, they come from a leaker named Vergeben, who is pretty prolific. Verge Ben. Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, Verge Ben. He is a pretty prolific leaker who's, has a decent track record from GameFAQs, and that's the only reason why people have been reporting on it there. But they do sound, Ridley sounds like the outlier. I see him being a hard character to mesh in there, but I guess he could be along the lines of Ganondorf in the big bad kind of category.
When it comes to Ridley, they explicitly said that they excluded him from Smash 4 because, quote unquote, he was too large of a character.
Yeah, he is like a big dude.
Yeah, and it's almost E3. This is the perfect time for leakers or faux news outlets to release information that's wrong. So I expect there's a lot of fake news out there right now.
Simon Belmont, though, does seem like someone who does belong in there. He seems like a character that, probably it's overdue to show up.
I believe he's more of a Konami character because
but
Konami
that doesn't matter.
Yeah, right. I was about to say that doesn't necessarily mean he's not going to be in it.
Yeah. Bad news. I mean, we've reported that there were some potential for Call of Duty Black Ops 4 to come to Switch. We heard some comments even from the company saying that it was something that they were looking at or considering, but apparently they've officially given word, no go.
No, but my blops, bro. Black Ops 4 is my jam.
And it's a little bit of a hit because it is one of those titles that has a lot of energy behind it and had a lot of hardcore fans, and I think that would have motivated a lot of people to take the Switch a bit more seriously.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's definitely one of those games that appeals to a very wide quote unquote casual audience. And
really? It's considered in the casuals?
Well, no, it definitely has its competitive scene. Mm-hmm. But when Call of Duty has the mainstream, it's one of those quote unquote mainstream games. And it would have been nice to have it on the Switch just so that we can prove to the mainstream audience that the Switch has validity as a console. But I think by this point we've proven it already. So
yeah, we don't need to prove anything at this point. Yeah. But yeah, it would have been nice.
Yes. Now, speaking of which, it looks like Resident Evil 7 is going to be released on the Nintendo Switch in Japan with an interesting twist. So it looks like Resident Evil 7 is going to be cloud streamed on the Switch. Kind of similar to OnLive or PlayStation View. You're not actually downloading the full game onto your Switch. You're going to be streaming the game from I'm guessing...
the cloud,
from the cloud.
This is kind of interesting, and it looks like it's going to be you're going to pay about $18 for a 180-day ticket, which will give you access to all the game's features, and all the DLC that was previously released for it. You'll also be able to have a 15-minute free demo to try the game before you buy the game. But this is kind of interesting. So with games like this, and I think we mentioned before that Phantasy Star Online 2 was going to be in a similar cloud delivered model, but that game had its own pricing plan. But just this idea of cloud gaming is something that I think that we're going to have to address in the future. And I see this as just another experiment with it, obviously, because this game was available as a full retail game on all the other consoles. But it's just like, hey, let's try something here, especially in Japan. They just want to test it there and maybe see what the viability of this model is for the future.
Right, and this is something that we're going to be discussing more in the future, even within this episode.
Yes, we'll read your opinions on this coming in the community pulse, so stay tuned for that. And finally, I just kind of wanted to call out these. That it's funny because there was all the royal wedding stuff this week in the UK, and that was pretty much all I saw all over the news. And even Nintendo got in on the action with a pretty clever little ad campaign they did with these billboards.
It's actually is really clever. It's bride Peach and groom Mario in their outfits with hats off to the royal couple caption.
Yes. Which, though, honestly, if anyone knows, I mean, spoilers, sure, but, she doesn't marry anyone in the game, and despite the attempts, which I thought was totally kind of a bit of a letdown at the end of that game, honestly.
Oh, really? Really? I thought, she's an independent woman. She doesn't have to marry anyone. She doesn't
have to, but
she can do what she wants with her life.
That's fine.
She can be a career woman.
I got the impression she was in this somewhat committed relationship, or has she just been, what do they call that when you
hook on the hook, stringing someone along?
keeping this plumber guy on the hook for 20 years now. I thought maybe this would be the time where she'd finally be like, all right,
tied the knot.
Nope. Obviously Mario's, he's been pouring this. He's been going in this direction for a long time now, but
he's putting a lot of effort, man.
But then again, maybe she just hasn't been giving any attention to it. Maybe she's not even keeping him on the hook. Maybe he's just totally reading into it, and she's just like, "Hey, I'm glad you rescue me every once in a while, but I got a kingdom to run, buddy. I'm not interested."
It could go either way. I'm going to give Peach her own agency and say that she probably doesn't dig Mario as much as he digs her.
Honestly, I wasn't upset that she didn't marry Mario. I was really upset that she doesn't marry Bowser. I think that's her true love.
That's the OTP. Bowser Peach OTP.
I'm totally a shipper for that.
You're in the Bowser camp.
In the update section, we got a update announced for Rocket League. The Salty Shores are coming to usher in the summer season with a new arena and some new cars, and they're going to have a new event coming, but they haven't released the details on that. But that's all going to hit on May 29th.
Yeah.
The next party crash for ARMS is going to be Master Mummy vs. Max Brass. So that'll be, I believe, this weekend, Friday, May 25th.
Yes. Go Max Brass. And
he's pretty awesome. I like both those big burly dudes in that one. But yeah, you can claim victory in the latest Splatoon 2 Splatfest.
Oh yeah, go Team Donnie. So Donatello won the tournament amongst all of the TMNT folks. And, I'm actually pretty surprised. I didn't expect him to be as popular as he is. Because as a kid, barely anyone wanted to play Donatello in my neighborhood.
In defense, Raphael did win the popularity vote. It's just that Team Donnie won the solo and team competitions. So
I guess
Raph was still the more popular.
I think that even happened in the Michelangelo versus Donatello one, too.
Oh, okay.
Donnie was the lower popularity.
Really? I'm a little surprised. I thought Michelangelo was like the least popular turtle. I just thought
he's a party dude, man.
I guess no one likes the nerd.
Yeah, but we got the smarts and the skills. So congratulations, Team Donnie. We did it, or you all did it, and I just piggybacked on that.
We also got a little clip of the new character that's going to be introduced in the Splatoon 2 Octo expansion. This one is Deadfish, and she is that is her nice name, and it's spelled in like one of those, like dead mouse kind of like ways. DEDF1SH, Deadfish. Yes, it's pretty clever and fun. And she has a pretty cool soundtrack that is going to be incorporated into the action, which is definitely going to be the transitional tune that you heard earlier. And there's something about an infection they talk about, that she was pursuing the idea of ideal music, and while exploring an underground facility, she was disinfected, whatever that means. So I don't know if This sounds like something that's going to tie into the whole plot of this mysterious storyline going on.
Ooh, mysterious.
Yes. She kind of looks like a zombie. That's the thing. Like, she has this greenish hue, and she has like the blue, like totally flat down tentacles. So she kind of looks like a zombie octoling.
Interesting. That's an interesting take. We'll see.
And her name is Dead Fish, so I'm thinking there might be some sort of zombie reference going on here.
Yeah, I can see that. That's a good assessment.
All right.
Now on the Minecraft front, it looks like we're getting aquatic feature.
Yes, and they called this the Update Aquatic, and
Yes.
it's going to be rolling out in 2 phases.
And it has a lot of aquatic assets that you'll be able to play with, like fish, treasure maps, ruins, shipwrecks.
An actual swimming animation when you're underwater.
Yeah, very cool.
Yes, so this is going to be rolling out.
So the first phase of the Update Aquatic release will come out with a Bedrock update on the 21st of June. The second phase, we're not quite sure when that'll be out, but it's something to look forward to.
All right, so JV, why don't you tell us what the new releases for this week are?
All right, let's do it. So today, in May 24th, we are getting Punch Club, 6180 The Moon, Zenbound 2, Baobab's Mausoleum, Episode 1, Ovenal Don't Eat Flamingos,
Yeah.
N++ Ultimate Edition. I couldn't pronounce that, I'm sorry.
No, I couldn't.
So we're getting Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon. I don't think that's the Bloodstained proper. I think that's the spin-off, right?
Yeah, this is the spin-off, the 8-bitty one.
That's not... Yeah, okay. Well, we're getting that first. Escape Game Aloha, Discovery, Arcade Archives Icky, Neo Geo Top Players Golf, and Dead Fun Pack Penguins and Aliens Strike Again. On May 25th, we're getting Dungeon Rushers, Mecha Storm! That's a mine.
That's good.
I wanted to leave it at that.
Okay.
But no, there's more to this list. There's Jumping Joe and Friends and Jurassic Paintball. On May 29th, we're getting Yoku's Island Express, Harvest Moon, Light of Hope, Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Edition. That's something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Fallen Legion, Rise to Glory, RBI Baseball 18, Legend of K Anniversary, Die for Valhalla.
Another Einherjar reference for my episode today.
Well, there you are. And Ikaruga and Knights of Pen and Paper 1 Deluxe Year Edition.
Oh, that's funny because I did play Knights of Pen and Paper on iPhone.
Well, there you go. But it's not just the Deluxe Edition. It's the Deluxe Year Edition.
This is the weird one where you play the Dungeon Master and you not only control like a party in battle, but like since you're the Dungeon Master, you choose what the obstacles are and you have to like choose what enemies they fight and make sure they're hard enough that they have fun killing things. So you can't just grind like one bat every turn, but you don't want to overload them so that the enemies kill the party. So
oh, how cool is that? That's actually pretty interesting. Yeah, I'd want to check that out.
All right, down the pipe. First off, I have to say one of my favorite game series, the IPs, is making its first jump over to the Nintendo Switch, and I'm happy to welcome the Super Neptunia RPG, which is from the Hyperdimension Neptunia franchise. This is a franchise that does every genre of game with its cast of characters. Like they've made a tactical RPG. There's they make a lot of really regular RPG games. They have a Muso warrior style game, and there's even I've reviewed in the past one of those idol sims where you are the manager for like a musical idol and stuff. So what's
interesting about this franchise is that the characters are Gijinkas of consoles, right?
Yeah, so that's like when they do the art renderings. Everyone has seen like an art book of like, here's World War II machinery as anime girls, and they do this sort of thing. Yes, all of these are the anime personifications of different video game consoles.
Yeah, so they had Xbox, the Wii, the PlayStation, that type of stuff. It was pretty interesting.
The main 4 characters are personifications of Xbox, PlayStation, Wii, and the Sega Neptune, which never actually released.
That's why it's Neptunia. Got
Right,
it.
exactly.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and they're actually all like there's a lot of cute references too. Like there's these twins that are the DS together because they're twins, and it's like
nice.
There's so many video game references, and it's about this war in cyberspace or whatever. The world's called Game Industry, and it's about the console wars because it's all these characters are fighting for people's attention. Anyway, in this particular game, this is going to be a 2D dungeon crawler. It kind of actually reminds me, again, going back to my title, this is actually another game that's similar to Valkyrie Profile because you go through dungeons in this 2D action style where you jump but when you get into fights, when you hit an enemy, you go into an actual turn-based RPG game. This is actually the same gameplay as Valkyrie Profile. So once again, randomly, everything's tying into one of my Switch picks for the recent.
Well, there you go.
Anyway, that I'm glad to see this coming in here. Banner Saga 2 is announced to be coming June 7th. I actually just started Banner Saga 1 this week, and I am hooked. This is definitely no. I really can't wait to talk about this game next week. This is
all right.
I'm shocked that I haven't played it sooner. Legendary 11 coming out June 8th. Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle June 22nd.
I'm going to try that out.
Oh, yes, that looks pretty fun. Sleep Tight, July 26th. Go Vacation, which is coming July 27th. This is like a really crazy collection of mini games. This is what I thought. This is the kind of game that I feel like could have been the Wii Sports of the Switch. If it
reminds me of Wii Play, to be honest.
It has that kind of vibe, yeah. It's just like 50 different mini games for either versus co-op or solo play, and across these different locations here with little me-type characters. But it looks like a fun little collection. Code of Princess EX, July 31st. SNK Heroines Tag Team, September 6th in Japan, so maybe soon for us. Gal Metal was announced for this year. My Girlfriend is a Mermaid. Also,
she is, Casey. Oh, I didn't know that.
I guess so. This is another visual novel, but this is looking to already be one of those fan servicey ones that I'm not going to touch. Hover, which was announced for what was a Kickstarter for a Wii game, but I'm sorry, this was a Kickstarter for a Wii U game, but they've officially transferred it over to Switch now.
Makes sense.
Cat Quest 2, The Lupus Empire, 20XDX.
20XX is actually one that I'm kind of interested in, and we actually played a little bit of this at PAX East, Casey.
Oh,
it's the
yes.
one. Yeah, it's the one that is essentially Mega Man X, but co-op.
Yes, that's right. Okay, very cool. I think a lot of people were hyped to see this here, and it does do a very good job of capturing that Mega Man style. But yeah, with co-op, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And again, NBA Playgrounds 2 was delayed. That was supposed to come out this week. They didn't announce when it's going to be coming out for Switch, but yeah.
That franchise is really plagued with delays and problems.
At least the Switch versions. It comes out late on Switch pretty regularly, so we'll see what they try to do to... Last time people got a free copy of Shaq Fu, who got delayed getting it, so maybe we'll get some other prize for if you pre-ordered this game.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, why don't we stop here and we'll take a breather and get into the Community Pulse. All right, Community Pulse, again, just to remind you guys, this week we asked the listeners what their opinions are on these cloud-based games being tried on a Switch, and would you play something like Resident Evil 7 or Phantasy Star Online 2 via one of these streaming services? So why don't we pick some, and why don't you tell us what the people think, JV?
All right, so to start off with, I'm going to go with Kevin Morrissey's comment. He said, "I'll wait and see. I like owning games and think the Switch's lack of good Ethernet options are a concern. But it is promising if it means we get games we wouldn't otherwise get. I don't want to see this used as a shortcut instead of doing a proper port, though." So, I agree. The Wi-Fi on the Nintendo Switch might not be the best to support cloud streaming, and the Ethernet options are very limited. So since cloud gaming is so dependent on a good, steady internet connection, it's interesting to see how that would work out on the Nintendo Switch.
Okay. Jeff Weinstein says, I'm not a fan of this at all! Exclamation point. The SaaS, software as a service. Yes, approach to computer software makes sense since it allows for easy migration of future OSs without having to worry about updates. But for video games, the new OS is usually accompanied by new hardware.
Yeah.
The only thing that could make a subscription service appealing is if it came with exclusive cloud-based features to justify the monthly cost.
I can definitely see that. When it comes to software, he makes a good point. I agree that I do prefer if the software itself was, tuned for the new console. The optimization that comes with porting software over to a new console is kind of paramount, and there is a degree of skepticism involved with cloud-based games on that front.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so another comment is from Daniel Malik. He says, this is a really weird thing to do, since it totally destroys the whole portability aspect of the Switch. Mm-hmm. I don't see many people connecting to Wi-Fi up in the mountains to play Resident Evil 7 in the middle of the night. But I would bet money there will be a commercial where they do. Honestly, yeah, I agree. This is completely antithesis to their whole play anywhere motto, since you are tied to an internet connection when you want to play this. Now, it is worth noting that this is a pretty good way to bypass any hardware limitations for the Switch, but you're not going to be able to play this game on the go, which is part of the whole appeal of the Switch in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if they're testing it out in certain areas in Japan where you could pretty much get a Wi-Fi connection almost anywhere.
Almost anywhere, yeah. And their internet connection is actually really strong compared to ours.
I think this could work in Japan where they're testing it, but I honestly don't think that it has any chance here where we just don't have that same infrastructure across the whole country. And yeah, like I said, there's definitely people in the mountains, and heck, I go in the train every day. That's where I spend most of my time gaming, where there's no internet, and that's not going to make any sense to me. The only plus is, I think we said it was like $18 to play the game for 180 days. I mean, that is a significant price cut
difference.
Yeah. So, I mean, at least they're giving you a value for your thing. But then again, I never know how long it's going to take me to beat one of these games. I might start playing it very hardcore for a week and then just be like, ugh, life came up and I don't touch it for like 3 months. And then I'm like, I paid, that's a problem for me too. But
180 days is half a year. So that's still quite a bit of time. And if you're going to stream and you're paying a monthly subscription service for something like this, then maybe it's worth it. But if it's a one-time price, who knows?
I mean, that's not bad. If it is 6 months for $18, that is a decent chance if you think you're going to get that out and if you're in the right situation to actually play it enough.
So my last comment is from Dane Brooks. He says, I want to have a reason to not like this because it seems a bit lazy. But logically, it's really no different than primarily online games like Splatoon. So I guess if it brings more games to the Switch, it's a good thing. I kind of agree, kind of disagree with this comment. There is a big distinction between primarily online games like Splatoon and something like cloud-based gaming itself. Since you have physical assets on your Nintendo Switch, for something like Splatoon, it means that the processing power is handled in your Nintendo Switch, and your internet connection is processing and sending out less information. With cloud-based gaming, you are so dependent on your internet connection because the whole gameplay experience is being streamed to the tablet itself, and the processing is handled on the cloud. There is going to be a big difference, and I believe the technology right now doesn't quite have the latency to make that a consistent experience. But it's hard to say.
Akai Mizu wrote one interesting point though. PSO2 is a must be connected at all times kind of game anyway, that being an MMO. So there's less of an issue with a game like that. But compared to Resident Evil 7, that can be normally played alone and without needed connectivity. So actually, that's kind of an interesting aspect. Maybe the MMO genre would be one that this would work well with, because it already has to be connected online anyway. Otherwise, what's the point of playing it? And it can maybe allow more powerful MMOs to be played on the Switch, since again, it would be taking advantage of that processing being done on the server end. So maybe that's why something like PSO2 can be on there, and maybe something like Final Fantasy XIV could even work using a cloud system.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. I think this cloud-based gaming is a way for people, or for the industry, to support more bulky games on weaker hardware. That's just something that they can look into. What I'm not confident in is just the network infrastructure required. When it comes to MMOs, you have the digital assets on your local system, and you're just sending out your inputs and outputs to the server and transferring it back and forth that way. It's the data that you're transferring is much less hefty in an MMO than if you're just streaming the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you everybody who wrote in. Again, if anyone wants to take part in these community pulse segments, the Facebook group and the SwitchCast Twitter account are both great places to visit. I post the questions on there before every podcast. So if you get on there Wednesday evening, you'll see the question, and you can definitely give your 2 cents in before we read them. So why don't we close out the show, JV, with our usual system switch, whereby we mention and describe games that we would like to see come to Switch, but have not been officially announced for it yet.
Yes. So for my system switch, I bet this is surprising absolutely no one, is the new Gundam Breaker game. It's coming out on the PS4 and not on the Switch, and I really want this on the Switch, Casey. I really do. I really do.
Is this like what kind of game is this?
So this is it's actually kind of a Monster Hunter style game where you are customizing your Gundam based on, various pieces. Kind of like a Gunpla, if you know what that is.
Okay.
Yes.
Like the little models,
so
the
you're forming
chat pieces.
Yes, you're forming a plastic model, and you attach arm pieces, leg pieces, shoulder pieces, head pieces, based on whatever features you want your Gundam to have, or you want your mobile suit to have. And from there, you take your mobile suit and you go into an area, kind of like a dungeon, and you defeat the enemies, and they have a random chance to drop other parts that you can then attach onto your Gundam to fight bigger bosses, etc., etc. What I love about this is just the sheer amount of customizability of it. You can customize the color, you can customize the aesthetic of your Gundam. If you know the concept of Gundam modeling, and if you've even seen anime like Gundam Build Fighters, where people build their own Gunpla and fight each other with them, this is the game for you, and I want this so badly.
Very cool. My pick for this week, because I want to get the series from the roots, I would like to see Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1, which came out on the Vita, actually. And this was the remake. It was kind of a modernization of the original RPG, the real 3D RPG that this series kind of originated with. It set all the tone. It established the world that these characters are in and what they can do and what their relationships are with each other. And it's a really massive RPG with just tons of dungeons and side things to do. There's lots of like character interactions. This is a series also, it's huge on the humor. There's so many like computer jokes, and some of them are probably going to be outdated by now, especially references to systems that you might not even heard of at this point. But I really dig the humor. If you're into games that are self-aware and games that have, reference the game industry themselves, and you can get these little computer jokes with things like EXE attacks and the fact that the characters are all called CPUs, and it's a really good charm. And I would like, if Neptunia is going to really make their appearance as an IP on the Switch, let's bring this game over here and just really educate everybody as to what they're about, because I think there's a lot of charm to it, and I think that they deserve to be exposed to a whole new generation of players here.
Yeah, I can see how it actually, equates to the real game.
They design them appropriately.
Yeah, it depends on your definition of appropriate. but yeah, cool, very cool.
All right, that is our show this week. Thank you all for listening, and until next time,
switch it up.
Thanks for listening. You can support the SwitchCast by visiting us at patreon.com/theswitchcast and join the review crew by rating us and subscribing on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Also, check out our Discord chat where we have an enthusiastic bunch of Switch fans in a family-friendly environment. Also, join our Facebook group for daily discussion and quite a bit of activity towards the Switch itself.
You can also contact us directly via email at kc@theswitchcast.com and jv@theswitchcast.com. Talk to us on Twitter @theswitchcast.
Thank you, HeatleyBros, for the theme music. And check us out on our website at theswitchcast.com, where we will post all relevant links and show notes.
Promotional considerations provided by publishers in the form of review copies of games.
Chippily chop, clop, 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 tasty, nom 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 nom. He's a fat cat. Edgeworth's a fat cat.